Okay, guys, so first I just want to apologize for not being able to be with you in person today. I hope that you do enjoy this lecture. There's a lot of information. We are going to go over self-concept, urinary elimination, and bowel elimination. We will begin with self-concept. What is self-concept? Self-concept is how you view yourself. Do you think that self-concept is subjective or objective? Self-concept is subjective. Oftentimes, people might use self-concept and self-esteem interchangeably, but there is a difference. Self-concept is how you think about yourself, how you view yourself. Self-esteem is how you feel, okay? What health reasons would cause a person to have a decreased self-concept? Maybe loss of bladder or bowel function, placement of a urostomy, placement of a colostomy, a decline in the ability to move. Maybe someone has suffered a traumatic amputation. Maybe someone had to have an open heart surgery and now they have a large scar on their chest. Or if someone had a stroke, their self-concept might be altered or impacted because whenever someone has a stroke, most oftentimes they cannot do for themselves like they once did. That frustrates them. Most oftentimes they experience aphasia, okay? And with aphasia, they either have a difficulty interpreting what you say or a difficulty trying to tell you what they want to say, okay? And when someone can't communicate, that's frustrating, right? So that can decrease their self-concept. Who do you think impacts your self-concept and self-esteem, especially at that young, vulnerable age? Parents, teachers, and siblings. Whenever adolescents come into that stage, it's a very critical time for them to develop self-esteem and self-concept. Who do you think would influence their self-esteem and self-concept? Maybe their family, their friends at school, new friends at school. Adolescents typically hit puberty, and during puberty, the girls might notice a breast development, or they might begin their menstrual cycle. The young men, they might develop hair under the arms, or acne. These can all be things that impact self-esteem and self-concept for this adolescent age, okay? Now, when we're speaking in terms of adults and the role that self-esteem plays in their lives, what would be a factor in that role? It's typically going to be your job satisfaction and your job performance. Are they happy with their career? Are they pleasing their boss? Okay. With aging adults, typically their self-esteem will be negatively impacted because of the diminishing emotional and physiological aspects. Maybe they need a cane, maybe they need a walker, maybe they can't hear as well anymore. Have you ever heard the saying that if you think negatively, negative things will happen to you? Research has proven that people with low self-esteem are at a greater risk for health problems than someone with a higher morale. Now, there should be a chart in your book. I believe it would be page 659, box 33-1, if you have the 8th edition book. Now, this is a box that lists Erikson's psychosocial theory of development. If each stage is mastered, then that leads to a solid sense of self. I do want you to review over this chart don't hone in on specific details. Just try to look at it as a broad category, okay? Now, when we're talking about terms of self concept, there's identity. Identity is the internal sense of who you are, what makes you complete. Identity changes and develops over time. Okay? How would children gain identity? Observations, being told, being taught about core values and how they should behave. Sexuality is a part of identity. It could be how an adult goes through different stages: pleasure seeking, procreation, and then they just want companionship. Okay? Sexuality can also relate to gender identity. Now, what would cause a person of another culture to feel discriminated against and that have an effect on their self concept? Maybe prejudice, bullying,